Between 1945 and 1950, 5 people disappeared into thin air in the same Vermont wilderness, and the cases were never solved. The record shows this happened in one of the most densely documented regions of New England. Bennington, Vermont, population under 3,000, a town where everybody knows everybody. Yet in the span of 5 years, 5 separate individuals walked into the woods or drove down familiar roads and simply ceased to exist. No bodies, no ransom notes, no evidence of foul play, just absence. Exhibit 1, Middie Rivers, November 1945, a 68-year-old woman. She left her home in Bennington to walk less than 2 miles to her daughter's house. The woods between them were familiar territory. She'd made the trip dozens of times. She never arrived. Search parties combed that forest for days. Nothing. The case file notes only one detail of consequence. Her body was never recovered. Exhibit 2, the Wyman family. December 1946. A father, mother, and their 8-year-old son. They were traveling by car on a road they'd driven 100 times before. The car was found abandoned on the shoulder, engine still running, doors open. The family vanished. No footprints led away from the vehicle. No distress signal. The woods around that road yielded nothing. Exhibit 3, Paul Jepson. October 1948, a college student. He went hiking in the area and became lost. That part is documented. He was found alive after several days in the woods suffering from exposure. But here's what the case file emphasizes. When rescuers located him, he was suffering from severe amnesia. He couldn't remember his own name, couldn't remember how he got there. The amnesia lasted for months. Exhibit 4, James Tedford. December 1949. A 68-year-old World War II veteran. He was riding a bus home to Bennington. The bus stopped in town. When the driver checked to collect his fare, Tedford was gone. The record states he was the only passenger. All exits were accounted for. He simply vanished from a vehicle in motion, or so the timeline suggests. Exhibit 5, Paula Welden. December 1946, a 19-year-old college student. She left her dormitory to take a walk on a nearby trail. She was wearing a red coat, highly visible. Within hours, search parties mobilized. They found her footprints in the snow leading up the trail. Then the footprints simply stopped. No deviation, no struggle, no body. The record only says the trail ended and she did not. 5 disappearances. 1 region, all unsolved. The pattern is what forces the investigator to pause and examine the file more carefully. This wasn't random violence. This wasn't a serial killer operating by any conventional method. These cases didn't fit the logic of abduction, murder, or voluntary flight. Something else was operating in that wilderness. The theories emerged quickly. Some investigators pointed to a geological explanation. The Bennington area sits on unusual mineral deposits. Magnetite, lodestone. Could the Earth itself be interfering with human consciousness? The record notes this theory was never substantiated. No scientific evidence supported it. Others suggested a more conventional culprit, a predator operating in the woods, a hunter, perhaps, or someone with intimate knowledge of the terrain. But the evidence doesn't align cleanly with that hypothesis either. The disappearances were too varied. Different methods, different seasons, different demographics. No single predator profile fits all 5 cases. A third theory, the cases weren't connected at all. They were coincidences. Unfortunate, tragic coincidences that happened to cluster in space and time. But the record shows local authorities and state investigators didn't accept that explanation. They were convinced something systematic was happening, something they couldn't name. What makes this case file so unsettling is what doesn't appear in it. There are no arrests, no confessions, no recovered remains except in the cases where bodies were eventually found years later, far from the search areas, in places that made no logical sense. The pattern suggests either extraordinary bad luck or something the investigators' tools weren't equipped to detect. The Bennington Triangle became a name whispered in true crime circles, not because it was solved, but because it remained stubbornly, defiantly unsolved. The disappearances stopped after 1950. No clear reason why, no final incident that closed the door. They simply ended as mysteriously as they began. Modern investigators have revisited the cases. They've applied contemporary forensic techniques. They've consulted missing persons databases. The record now shows that some of these disappearances may have had conventional explanations, voluntary departures, accidental deaths in remote areas, cases that resolved quietly. But not all of them, not all 5. The file remains open. The case is documented but not closed. And what lingers is a question that resists easy answers. What conditions in that landscape, in that time, in that place created such a pattern? Was it human predation? Environmental hazard, psychological break, sheer statistical improbability, the record doesn't say. The evidence doesn't point to one conclusion. What we know with certainty is this. 5 people entered that Vermont wilderness or those familiar roads, and 5 people did not return. The circumstances vary. The explanations elude us. The Bennington Triangle remains one of America's most perplexing clusters of disappearances, not because it's unexplainable, but because every explanation falls short of the full truth. The case file closes. The questions remain open. And somewhere in Vermont, that stretch of wilderness keeps its secrets. If unsolved disappearances and the cases that refuse closure grip you the way they grip investigators, subscribe. There's a new case file here every week, and the next one might be the one that finally makes sense of the inexplicable. Subscribe, there's a new case file here every week, and the next one might finally answer the questions this one couldn't.